My name is Lee Davey. I am not an alcoholic. I refuse to be anonymous. I am someone that doesn't drink alcohol, and I spend every waking moment of my life helping other people do the same. Like right now, we're going to be talking about triggers. So we're going to do this every week. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through our trigger archives, and I am going to be discussing lessons that we can learn from each trigger. So what is a trigger? Hey, Tina, what is a trigger? So when we want to be people that don't drink alcohol, the one thing that gets in our way more than anything else is the desire to drink alcohol. If you think about it logically, if we had no desire to drink alcohol, we wouldn't have an alcohol problem, right? I'm pretty sure that neither Dominic, Stella, or Tina, who are on here right now, have a problem with heroin, right? They have no desire to inject heroin into their veins. And because they have no desire to inject heroin into their veins, it's not a problem to them. They don't feel that urge, they don't feel that crave. But for most of us, when we have a problem with alcohol or any other addiction like smoking, gambling, pornography, sugar, we feel that craving, we feel that urge. And at 1000 Days Sober, we call that a trigger. And if you want to be someone that doesn't drink alcohol, understanding why we get triggered and using root cause analysis to really get to the bottom, both rationally and logically, and also emotionally, about why is it that I'm feeling the urge now to drink alcohol is really important, okay? I gave up drinking alcohol, as you know, most of you, reading a book. So I read Alan Carr's Easy Way to Control Alcohol. I don't think it's that simple. I think that the universe conspires to create the perfect storm for you. And when you're ready in that moment, then everything makes sense. And that is why at 1000 Days Sober, we created the 1000 Days Sober experience, 6 stages: stuck, thought, ready, initiative, vigilance, and evolution. So we can be there for you when you're ready, when your perfect storm is ready, right? But for me, it definitely was when I read that book about 10 years ago, when I learned that alcohol provided me with zero value, like zero long-term value. And once I could wrap my head around that and look at every perceived value through the lens of that thought process, so I could say to myself, for example, I believe that alcohol right now, if I drink it, like say I had a really stressful day at work and my boss said I was terrible at my job and I was struggling for anxiety, and I came home on a Friday and I had all these thoughts racing through my head telling me that I was useless. So my shame is really triggered, right? In that moment, I could say to myself, in order to silence these voices and to get rid of this shame, I could drink alcohol, right? Now that is instant gratification. That is the addiction. That is resistance talking in the moment. But if you look at that issue through a long-term lens, you realize that if I drink alcohol right now, the next time that my boss ridicules me and it triggers my boy psychology and I start feeling ashamed and I start feeling that I'm not good enough and all those thoughts and feelings, I'm just going to drink again. So for the long term, I'm not dealing with my problem because I feel like I'm dealing with it through drinking, but I'm not, because it keeps coming up. Whereas a much better way of looking at it is to say, okay, well, actually, alcohol is not providing me that long-term value. It's not. It's providing me short-term value. So what do we do? Well, we recognize that as human beings, we're supposed to be anxious. We're supposed to be stressed. We're supposed to be depressed. We're supposed to be sad. We're supposed to feel like we're a knobhead. We're supposed to feel a bit weird. We're supposed to feel a bit fucked up, right? And that's normal. And actually, if we sit with those voices and we sit with that anxiety, we can handle it. And it's not as bad as we think it is. And actually, when you think about it, because none of us drink from the moment we wake up until the moment we go to bed, and I'm saying we as in people that are in my circle here at 1000 Days Sober, we know that we can deal with our anxiety because we deal with it every day, okay? So that kind of rationale, that kind of logic, and that kind of understanding, and also working with our coaches to help you deal with the emotional aspect of that, like where are you feeling your trigger in your body and all that kind of stuff, can really, really help, okay? So understanding triggers if we're 1000 Days Sober and you're at Strive is really important. I really encourage people that every time they feel triggered, that they go on to Strive and they answer the 12 questions we have there. I think it's 11 or 12. Might be 11. 11 questions in the trigger section on the Strive community. Answer those questions. And the reason that is it will allow you to process. Processing is really important when we're triggered. So you can either write it in the moment or you can write it afterwards. It doesn't matter, but you're processing it. Rather than keeping the trigger in your mind, which is a lot more difficult to deal with, you're processing it by writing it on paper, or digital paper in this respect. And then whilst you're emptying your mind, your light bulbs will go on. Or you'll start asking questions about, well, why did I really think that? Or, wow, that's a load of bullshit. Or, wow, I want to find out more about that. And also your peer group, your fellow strivers can look at what you're writing. And here's the thing, everybody would have experienced a similar trigger, because although each event is unique, all the triggers are the same. They all bunch down into different categories, very familiar categories. So now you can get empathy and support from your fellow strivers, because they're like, yeah, I have this trigger too. I've had that trigger too. And this is what I did to overcome it. So now you're getting help, and now you're getting guidance. So you're getting help, guidance, empathy, support, and you're processing. Now, if you're in a position where you're stuck and you're literally being triggered every day, so let's say you're being triggered like 50 times a day, then to go onto Strive and to, write out your trigger 50 times is not really advisable. But what you could do is you could say to yourself, wow, that was a really strong trigger. I'm going to write about that one. Or that is a really peculiar trigger. I'm going to write about that one. Or of my 50 triggers today, 30 of them were the same. So I'm going to write about one of them because they're all the same. The reason people don't go to triggers and process is resistance. By processing your trigger, you are getting to the root cause of why you drink. And when you do that, you won't have the desire to drink. That's the whole purpose of the trigger section. But resistance wants you to drink, which means you want to drink, which means you don't want to fix yourself in that moment. If you go to triggers and you expose yourself and you start fixing and working yourself, then you're going to have to be someone that doesn't drink alcohol, which means you're going to have to go through the pain and suffering necessary in order for you to be someone that doesn't drink alcohol. And resistance doesn't want that, because very often, as screwed up as our life is as drinkers, we're used to it. We're used to the blood. We're used to the guts. We're used to the shit. We're used to the carnage. We're used to the infidelity. We're used to the physical, mental abuse. We're used to looking horrible. We're used to smelling horrible. We're used to the house being a mess. We're just used to it, right? What we're not used to is the opposite of all those things. And I won't, for the sake of brevity, I won't go into them. But we're not used to stepping into our power. We're not used to being and accepting that we're powerfully fucked up human beings, right? So we don't go there. We don't post on triggers. We feel as well incredibly ashamed that we've had a drink, particularly when we're in a peer group like 1000 Days Sober. But please don't be afraid and don't run away and don't be ashamed when you see people posting about how well they're doing. And then you start internalizing and creating internal attributions that say, I'm not as good as that person. Please think about the positiveness of being within a container like 1000 Days Sober, where you can feed off the positive energy of everybody else. Almost like sucking it right in. Yeah, sucking it in. Okay? Really, really super important. Yeah, Tina, looking into the mirror. What are you saying in the mirror? What do you see when you look in the mirror, Tina? Let us know, okay? What do you see and what do you want to see? If you're not happy with it, let us know, okay? So that is triggers. And that's what we're going to be talking about every week. So I'm going to be talking about this trigger that Polly had. And Polly's a member of Strive. She's been with us for some time now. I'm going to be slow. I'm going to be deliberate. I'm not going to be my usual manic self. And that's because I got to read it. And I don't know it off the top of my head. So I'll just start with Polly's trigger. She was driving her children back from football camp, okay, when she started to have that desire to drink alcohol. And it was 3:00 on a Friday afternoon. And the kids were fighting in the back of the car. So it's just her, the kids. She's driving back. They're fighting in the back, and it's 3:00 on Friday afternoon, okay? Now, the first thing that I want to draw your attention to is the importance of data analytics, right? So if you want to be someone that doesn't drink alcohol, you need to reawaken your inner nerd, right? And one of the reasons this is because you need to look for patterns. Because if any of you have ever read The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, and if you haven't, please do, he talks about the habit loop. It's all about pattern recognition, understanding that what Seth Godin says, people like us do things like this, okay? People like us in the UK drink alcohol, right? People like us do things like this. People like us in the UK on a Friday at 3 o'clock start thinking about drinking alcohol. All right. So the importance of data allows you to see patterns like that. Oh, there's a pattern. So it's not this Friday that I'm triggered. I'm triggered every Friday. Okay. So why am I triggered every Friday? What is it about a Friday that makes me triggered? And you very often, that is like one that might stand out for everybody who is working the 9 to 5 living in the UK, right? It might be just so common to you, but there'll be other ones that aren't so common. You might realize that I'm triggered every night at 5 o'clock. I'm triggered every single time I go to football with my father. I'm triggered every single time I have to look after my kids. I'm triggered when I have to go to work on a Monday morning. I'm triggered when football is on TV. Whatever, you will find some really glaringly obvious, once you start to process your triggers and record them, issues where, oh my God, I'm having that same trigger all the time. So if you can deal with this Friday, if Polly can deal with this Friday trigger, okay, then she is getting rid of 52 triggers a year, because she's never going to be triggered on a Friday if she could just fix her trigger on a Friday. And that's how I want you to look at this thing. I want you to look at it like a discovery, like a puzzle. Like, how many triggers do I have? What are they? Write them down. Which ones are what I call anchor triggers? So, like, for example, Polly's here. An anchor trigger is I get triggered on a Friday. I get that Friday feeling. It's an anchor trigger. And then another trigger could be my husband just punched me in the face and I just went upstairs and drank a bottle of vodka, which is more emotionally driven. Okay. So we write a big list of these things and then we start attacking them one by one. Right? Because the feeling of attacking alcoholism and the problem of alcoholism, like, is massive. So we need to break it down into bite-sized chunks. And this analytics is really important. So I really push people and strive to note the specifics. What day is it? What time is it? What is going on? Really get into the detail, because we need to highlight these potential hot zones. We need to understand which triggers are anchor triggers that happen all the time, which are emotionally driven. So, you know, we can replace like the anchor habit with something else, and we can learn to deal and sit with and manage our emotions, okay? I'm just saying here on my notes, often we become overwhelmed with the enormity of being someone that doesn't drink alcohol. However, the vast majority of the time, we do manage fine without drinking or thinking about drinking, right? So it's really important to remember that we're only activated and thinking about drinking at certain times. So back to Polly's Friday feeling. She's from the UK, like I said, and becoming triggered on a Friday afternoon is quite a common trigger, right? Because people generally, in the stereotypical way that people work, I know it's changing, but it's still the most dominant one, is that we go to work on a Friday morning, we come home, go to work on a Monday morning, we come home on Monday night around the same time, maybe 8 to 4, something like that, and we finish on a Friday. And typically when you're in that environment, and especially if you've been working for a long period of time, there's this Friday like doesn't even exist as a working day on a calendar. Everybody in work is getting really excited about going out on a Friday. So it becomes like a really emotionally charged memory, right? That when it's Friday, people like us do things like this. We get excited and we go out drinking. Now, 2 things that I want to mention there. One, it's really important to understand that the trigger, the desire to drink alcohol, is the perception that you are going to have a good time. Think about that. The trigger builds maybe on a Thursday night, that you know you're going into work on a Friday and you know that Friday is going to be a bit of a fuck all day. Nobody's going to really do anything. because everybody's looking forward to leaving a little bit early and going to the pub on the way home. So Friday's always a good day in work, right? So we start to have that anticipation on Thursday night that Friday's going to be pretty good. We get in there, we're kind of pretty good. And then we're talking to people around work about, hey, come on, let's meet up later on, have a beer. And all of a sudden the anticipation is growing. So then when you get there and you have the beer and then you get into your conversations with your friends or whatever, like you look at the whole thing, the whole event, and you pick out alcohol and say, alcohol made that moment special. Alcohol provided the value. Alcohol is a thing that stuck everything together, the glue that stuck everything together. Alcohol is the cure to all our social ills. It is bullshit. It's utter bullshit. What is happening is you're getting excited about an event happening that you have an emotional charge to, going out drinking on Friday night. And it's that perception, that feeling, that urge that you're going to be doing something great that is giving you those wonderful thoughts and those wonderful vibes. And then when it comes to the moment and you're there and you're drinking it with your friends, it's the fact that you're with your friends. It's the fact that you're in that environment that is making you feel good and is providing all the juju juice and all the dopamine and all the other kind of neurotransmitters that are flicking around in your head. The alcohol, which is your pint, every time you have a sip of it, is taking you further and further away from the stimuli, which is creating your beautiful moment. It is taking you further away from yourself and connecting with your heart and coming from a true place of authenticity. It is taking you away from your friends because you're no longer listening to them. You're too concerned about what you're going to say next and about your life and thinking about drinking and going to get another drink and how much you're going to drink and how you're going to get home. And can I only have 2 or can I have 3? La, 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 la. And your environment becomes nothing. It kind of like recedes further and further away into the distance as you kind of internalize and come more and more into yourself. How many of us have gone to the pub to watch a football and we can't remember the game because we were drinking? How many of us have gone to a gig and we can't remember a single strum of a guitar? And yet we tell ourselves that we had an amazing time, which is not possible. Why is that? Resistance. If we tell ourselves that we had a really shit time, we may have to look at it and we may have to stop drinking. By telling ourselves we had a great time, we can continue drinking. Okay? So there's that aspect to the Monday to Friday thing. There's also this aspect here that is like it's scarcity, it's lack. And whenever we come from a place of scarcity and lack, we're driving, we're falling right into the arms of resistance. So thinking to ourselves, oh yeah, Monday, Friday's coming. I can't wait to get rid of this foggy place. I can't wait to get away from work. I can't wait to like kick back and celebrate in the weekend and all that. It's not joy. It's scarcity. It's like, think about it. We're going to spend 80,000 hours in our lifetime on average working, and we're telling ourselves that we can't wait to get away from those 80,000 hours. Think about how soul-crushing waste of a life that is. The vast majority of your life, you're either sleeping or working. Sleeping or working. And we're trying to get away, or we can't wait to get away, some of us, from both, right? That is a problem that we really need to look at, okay? Why is it, says Polly, that the city feels different on a Friday, that it feels charged with excitement for the weekend? Why is it the city feels different on a Friday? It feels charged with excitement for the weekend. It feels like Polly's words are coming from a novel. It feels like a line in a script that we've read a million times, that we've seen on TV a million times, that we've seen in movies a million times, that we've heard in musical lyrics a million times. Why is it the city feels different on a Friday? It feels charged with excitement for the weekend, right? This compelling story that we add fuel to its fire by generating more emotion towards it and allowing it to grow and grow and grow really, really eats away at us. And it produces this sense of lack and scarcity. So it's like, oh no, everybody's out really enjoying themselves on a Friday and I can't be there, right? But it's a story. It's a subjective story. Let me tell you my thought process on that, right? If it was true that we were all charged up by this and there was this buzz and we're all charged up by it, then we would all be feeling the same. But I don't feel like that on a Friday. Let me tell you how I feel on a Friday. And I too have a scarcity problem that I need to deal with. And it leads to an addiction. And I'll explain. Today is Friday. It's 12:30. At 4 o'clock, I'm going to hand the reins of work to my wife, Liza. I'm going to say, Liza, get on and go do some work. And I'm going to look after my daughter, Zia. Okay? I have been working really hard lately because when it comes to Thursday for me, I start getting anxious and stressed. Not like Polly, that the weekend is coming. And I'm like, I'm kind of like, the opposite. I got that excitement and stuff. I have the opposite. I get anxious and nervous that the weekend is coming because I don't want it to come. I don't want it to come. Polly wants it to come. Polly's looking for it. Polly's feeling the excitement and the charge. And she won't be alone. But I'm feeling a completely opposite effect. Because I don't have a job. I don't have a career. I have a vocation. This is my vocation. I spend my time helping people to save their lives. Why would I ever want that to end? So I don't get this feeling that, oh yeah, it's Friday, I can't wait to go out and have a drink, the city's supercharged and all this kind of stuff. I get the feeling, oh no, it's Friday, I can't work again until Monday. And then what do? It drives me into the addiction of the workaholic. I need to work, which is something that I'm working on, right? Because I need to be more present for my family. High five me, I'm doing a really good job of that lately, right? So I'm telling you that if you want to be someone who doesn't drink alcohol, and you currently exist in a series of stories, one of which is Friday nights are party nights, and if I can't go out and party with everybody else, I'm going to feel like I'm lacking, then you need to change that story. Because when I go to Cardiff City Centre on a Friday night, I don't feel a supercharged electric atmosphere. I feel a nasty vibe that something is going to kick off. I wonder why there are big, heavy-set men on every door of every pub. If I go a little bit later, the police presence is incredible. The zombies walking around the street, just throwing shit everywhere, falling over, swearing, having fights. It's a war zone. I don't see that like that wonderful, exciting, beautiful, amazing vibe. But I did. I loved it. I couldn't wait to get into it. I was excited about it. But when I took the vow to be someone that doesn't drink alcohol, I knew that I had to change the way that I thought about these things. I knew I had to change these stories. I knew I had to look at alcohol. I needed to ask myself, does this really provide me value? And when I realized that it didn't, I got very, very angry that I fell for the lie. And then my eyes were opened and I saw the truth. That city centers on a Friday night are not supercharged, wonderfully connective, amazing experiences. It's the complete opposite. People are drinking to run away from each other. People are drinking to run away from themselves. People on a Friday night are not connecting, they are disconnecting. They're disconnecting on a personal level, on a close-knit kind of level, but also look at the damage that is happening to the world and the energy that travels through the universe, right? Like if the way that we deal with life is that we just get smashed off our tits so we can't remember anything, that's kind of the energy that we're putting out there. There's a real nasty energy that alcohol produces in mass groups of people. It's not good vibe, right? So I think it's really important straight off the bat that this Friday night trigger can really change. And the way that it changes is we process, we change our thought process around it, we do some new mantras, but most importantly, we change our Friday nights. We change our Friday nights. If we hate our job and we can't wait for the weekend to come along, then we need to change our job. And we can't just change it overnight, but we can take some excitement and we can put some excitement and effort into how we're going to do it. Just thinking about meaning and purpose and what is it we would really like to do. Although it will generate some emotion around, wow, I don't really know what I want to do. I mean, I got really upset about it when I was figuring it out 10 years ago. But when you can get over that, especially with support, it's really exciting to get into that stuff. So a big part of the work of being 1000 days sober is analyzing every area of your life and changing it. I can't remember the last time I ever went to a pub. I can't remember the last time I hung around with people in the environment that Polly got triggered by. So if I don't need to be there and I feel like I'm living a fucking tip-top life, why does anybody have to be there? Are we there because we want to be there because we want to drink? Are we there because we want to be there because it is more comfortable than telling our friends we don't want to be there? Are we there because it's more comfortable than telling our friends that we would rather go to Starbucks, or that we would rather go for a hike, or that we would rather go to the cinema or to the theater? What is it? Why are we really there? Why are we really there, right? So just wanted to put that out there. And here's another one. So Polly also said in the trigger, you know, that's what we do on a sunny weekend. We drink and we connect. That's what we do on a sunny weekend. We drink and connect. This is where our language is really important. And if you go through the thought phase of the 1000 Days Sober experience, we have a module there called Language of Change, which builds off the work of Alan Zukoff, right? Because these lines that we write, these thoughts that we think of, they become beliefs, hardline beliefs. That's what we do on a sunny weekend. We drink and we connect. It's a commandment. When it's sunny, we drink and we connect. Why do we need to drink when it's sunny to connect? Do we connect when it's sunny and we drink? Think about that, okay? When it's sunny, you want a refreshing drink. Would you have a cup of tea? Probably not, right? Because it's hot, but it's also a diuretic. So it's not going to refresh you. Is alcohol going to refresh you? It's not. It's the same. It's going to make you want to drink more and more alcohol. It's part of the trap, right? Now, there's nothing greater than going out on a sunny weekend with friends and connecting. But the truth of the matter is, when you add alcohol into that mix, you disconnect, especially with the sun beaming down on you, because it accentuates the demise by 10x. But people like us do things like this. We've convinced ourselves in the 95% of the subconscious that operates our programming on a daily basis, without us even thinking about it. Oh, sun, 12 o'clock, Saturday or Friday afternoon, sun's blaring. Let's go find a beer garden, sit outside, watch everybody walk by and drink and have a laugh. It's embedded within us, but it's built on a foundation of bullshit. And you can understand this when you go through your triggers and you look at them in a different kind of story, you know? And I've wrote again, once again, we create a story that there's something magnificent about drinking alcohol on a warm summer afternoon. Like, I deal with this all the time, that people come to 1000 Days Sober and they say they don't want to stop drinking alcohol. And then I'll say to them, well, what is it you love about alcohol? And then they'll say, well, nothing. I say, come on, you must love something about alcohol because you drink it all the time. You can't stop. And then they'll slowly start to say, well, you know, helps improve my social situations, helps me feel less anxious. The truth of the matter is, we fucking love it. We love it. We love it because from the moment we came into this world, screaming and fucking kicking, hoping to get pushed back up into that nice quiet womb, right? That the world convinced us that in order for us to be fitting in and for order for us to be liked and in order for us to be loved, we need to drink alcohol. So we have been programmed from birth to believe that drinking alcohol is not only normal and ubiquitous, it's a rite of passage. It's a rite of passage. I'm reading a book at the moment that says that one of the biggest problems in the world is that men are stuck in their boy psychology. When they get into a fight with their wife and their wife turns around and says, you're acting like a fucking kid, it's because most men are operating from their boy psychology. And part of the reason this is in Western culture, we don't have rituals anymore where boys become men. So we get stuck in this internal boy psychology in a male body, right? Those rituals are missing. They don't exist anymore. You see them in tribes in the Amazonian rainforest. But we have pseudo rituals. And one of those pseudo rituals is, hey, son, come to the pub with me now you're 14, have a pint. So you're with your dad, you have your pint. It tastes disgusting, but your dad, the only guy you want to connect with who never connects with you, is looking you for your reaction, and you turn around and say, you sell your soul to the devil, I loved it. And you hated it. And you didn't know why you're doing it. And you're like, what the fuck am I doing? But you do it because you have to do it, because people like us do things like this. It is your ritual, your pseudo ritual to go from a boy to a man, but you never become a man, because this takes over and keeps you as a boy. And this is why so many relationships end, because the woman is stuck with his fucking boy. I've been there. I had one relationship fall apart because of it. I had a second one that nearly fell apart because of it, because I didn't even know that I was a fucking little boy, right? If you want to become a man, one of the stages here, if you want a real ritual, stop drinking alcohol. Take the vow to put health up there, way, way, way above this bullshit, right? So we have to ask ourselves honestly, with the sunny weekend kind of thing coming up, where's the value? Does it improve the social experience? Really, does it? Does it really improve the social experience? How many people who are not even thinking about drinking alcohol are thinking, does this improve the social experience or not? It doesn't happen, does it? We don't think it. Alcoholism, the invisible, violent, and dominant belief system, it's created so we don't have these conversations. Because we can't have them, because if we have them, it awakes the cognitive dissonance. And if the cognitive dissonance awakes, then we're fucked. Because now we can't enjoy ourselves when we drink, because we're always questioning, what am I drinking for? What am I drinking for? Why am I drinking too much? It was much better life when these voices weren't in my head. Does drinking alcohol on a Sunday afternoon give you a buzz? Does it give you a buzz? Is that the reason we're really drinking it? Why? Okay. I haven't taken a great deal of drugs in my life, but I used to take a lot of speed in my early years. And I can tell you the buzz of taking that speed was nothing compared to the buzz of alcohol. The buzz of an orgasm or a sexual experience is better than alcohol. And I could probably run off a list of others that are so much more of a buzz than alcohol. We're not drinking alcohol because it's given us a buzz. Because there are other things out there that are giving us a greater buzz. But we're telling ourselves that it's giving us a buzz, because if it doesn't give us a buzz, what the fuck are we drinking it for? Telling ourselves that it gives us a buzz, and that buzz is like a 10 out of 10 buzz, it allows us to drink alcohol. It allows us to drink it. It allows us to not be ashamed of it. This massive, massive release when you realize that alcohol has no value, real positive release. But there's also massive amounts of shame. Like, fuck, I remember I'm 35 years of age and I understand that alcohol provides you with no value. Think about that. How much money I wasted, how much time I wasted, how many relationships I ruined, what the fuck I did to my health. For what? Think about this really, really rationally. That you work hard all week, you get a paycheck, you've got debt, you don't know How are you going to get out of it? And the first thing you do on a Friday is you go to the pub and you spend, I don't even know how much it is these days. Maybe, but back in the day when I was drinking, 30, 40, 50 quid on alcohol. Think about this. I'm spending 30, 40, 50 quid to drink this stuff that is disconnecting me from myself and the world. And then I go and I piss it out. And then later on I puke it up. And then I probably fight with my wife. Like, what the fuck is going on? Right? So in order to kind of understand all that, we can't just walk away from it. We can't just admit it. We have to go through a massive battle for us to forgive ourselves and to have compassion with ourselves and to understand that there is an invisible, violent, and dominant belief system out there that perpetuates this stuff. Then we can have compassion with ourselves, right? And that's why 1000 Days Sober and this work we do is really important. Because when you're going through that process, you need that container. You need a new philosophy because you need to think differently. That alcohol is not normal and it's not pleasurable, right? So you need a new philosophy. You need a support system. You need, when you turn around and say to people, fucking hell, this guy Lee said alcoholism is a visible, violent, dominant belief system. Back in the day, they probably would have burned you for being a witch. And your friends will burn you similarly, metaphorically, if you talk like that. But when you're in Strive, when you're in 1000 Days Sober container, people go, yeah, isn't it? It's funny that we never knew that. And you can talk about it, you know? Like, whoa, last night I got really lonely and I turned on some porn and I masturbated. Can you imagine like spewing that out to your friends in a pub? Yeah, I just frigged myself off last night because I was really lonely. You know, that's what I want to talk about it instead of talking about the weather. You know, in Strive, in 1000 Days Sober, someone is likely to go, that happens to me, right? So the support system is really important. 3, education, right? Education. The 1000 Days Sober experience, those 6 stages, right, that we guide you through with those videos, really super important. Education, philosophy, support system. That's how you'll nail it, right? So let's move on a little bit here. Okay, back to Polly's trigger. Any questions so far, by the way? Anything coming up that you want me to touch upon? Type it in if you do. So after Polly's initial trigger in the car, we haven't even got to the main part, right? We're just at the initial trigger in the car. I hope this is really helpful to you. Type in the chat there if what I'm talking about is speaking to you, because that's important feedback for me, of course. After the initial trigger in the car, Polly met up with 2 of her mates. Okay, one of them has an addiction problem, and the other one is pregnant. Right? So 2 mates, one with an addiction problem, one pregnant. They all decide to go out. And bear in mind, COVID's going on, right? So they all decide to go out, but they can't find a beer anywhere because all the pubs have got various different COVID restrictions. So then Polly, the person who's trying not to drink alcohol, and I just want to say that kudos for Polly for posting her trigger and allowing me to use it. Okay, very brave, very courageous, right? Polly suggests to the other folks, well, we can get some beers at the chip shop across the road. Okay, and Polly writes, this feels like when that was questioned, like, why did you do that, Polly? Like, Polly doesn't want to drink alcohol. Okay, she's at Strive, she's at 1000 Days Sober, she's working the 1000 Days Sober experience, and she strung a long time together of not drinking. And now suddenly she's with 2 people, there's lockdown going on outside, and she's suggesting to someone else that they go and have beers. Now, if you think about it, when you're think about this setup for someone who doesn't want to drink alcohol. There's COVID, so you don't really want to go out anyway because you want to protect your family. You know that the bar's going to be a fucking nightmare. If you do want to protect yourself, the bar's the last place you want to go, because not only are people flouting COVID restrictions anyway, you get them drunk, they're really going to flout them because they don't know what the fuck they're doing. So Polly then decides, well, we'll go out all together in COVID. And then one guy's got an addiction problem, so you wouldn't want him to drink, and the other one's pregnant. Yet this thing happens. So it is an amazing opportunity to do something completely different, right? This isn't a hard one to do something different. If you think about it, everything is stacked up. The universe is saying to Polly, you don't want to drink alcohol? Here you are. I'm going to provide you with a pregnant woman, a guy who's an addict, and I'm going to unleash a pandemic on the world, which is going to make going to the pub a nightmare. The universe is supporting her in this, but it doesn't happen that way. So Polly got asked in the trigger section why. She said, it feels like a little bit of like people pleasing, like it's a little bit like people pleasing, right? And Polly says, they know I'm not drinking and I've then messed up. They do know, but at the time I didn't want to be messing up their Friday beers, right? So they knew she didn't want to drink. She's not been drinking, but she didn't want to mess up their night. So there's a couple of things that I want to just point out here that I think could be really helpful for you. One is someone knowing you're not drinking. Well, first of all, them knowing you're not drinking is kind of loaded with assumptions and is really flaky, right? Look at the difference here between the last 3 times you go out with your friends, you're not drinking. They ask you why, and you just make some excuse up. And compare that to you sit down and have a conversation with your friends and say, I know we're going to meet up on Friday night, but I want you to know that I'm not drinking. I'm a member of a group of people called Strive. We call ourselves Strivers. We're in this container called 1000 Days Sober. And I've been really working hard at understanding why I drink alcohol so I can stop, because it's ruining my life in X, Y, Z. And since I've stopped, I'm really liking myself and where I am, but it's a really difficult and challenging journey. So being around people who drink and being in environments where people drink is a big trigger for me right now, and I'm not ready for it. And I wonder I just wanted to let you know that I love hanging out with you, but until I'm ready to go back to those old places, until I've nailed this, I really want to try to do something different. Compare that to just making excuses up every time someone says, do you want to drink? And you say, no, I'm not really feeling like it right now. I'm having a bit of time off. Fucking hell, they're different planets, right? So that line of Polly's, they know I'm not drinking and I've messed up. So they know I'm not drinking and I've messed up. So that's saying like, and it's an assumption, right? That's saying like, they could see that I'm not really serious about this, or they could see that I'm in and out. How many of us know people who are in and out? I remember when I quit smoking, I would constantly give my cigarettes over people and say, I'm fucking done. And people would laugh at me because they knew that I wasn't serious. They were like, fucking way, he does this all the time. He's going to be begging me for cigarettes later on. A lot of them would keep the pack and then give it back to me later on. So we all know people like this. It's another kind of story. It's another kind of like something we know that happens. So it's really important, I think, to recognize this and be really open and support in terms of explaining to the people what support looks like for us and how we want to be supported. Okay? So really super important. So many times I see this, that we end up drinking because we have not found the courage or the right words. It's all courage. All goes from courage. We haven't found the courage to tell the people how we really feel. Okay? How we really feel. And then this needs to then kind of tie into, and how friendly are these friends? Like, what do they mean to me? Because surely if these friends are the type of friends who we trust, we respect, that they hold a secure container, then we would be able to have these conversations with them. And if we can't have these conversations with them, then we need to question where they land on our kind of friendship axis. Are they in our inner circle? Are they really close friends? Are they just acquaintances, right? Because that's really important. And I don't want to mess up their Friday beers. Again, it's people pleasing. And people pleasing has its roots in fixed mindset. So if you read the work of Carol Dweck, and if you don't, please do, there's a book she's got called Mindset. She says that we kind of fluctuate between having a fixed mindset and growth mindset. So a fixed mindset is when we're focusing on external validation as a gauge of our self-worth. So if we are worried to tell our friends that we are not drinking alcohol, it's because we're slipped into fixed mindset thinking. because we're worried what they'll think about us. And fixed mindset thinking is a scourge of addiction. If we are coming from a growth mindset, then we will have that conversation and that script that I just laid out to you. Sorry, just sip my tea everywhere. So that's a massively important point, because just read what I wrote here. If we have a fixed mindset, then our self-worth is going to rise and fall with the viewpoint of our friends. And that makes quitting alcohol become a nightmare. Okay? Because we're so afraid of doing the work to experience self-worth from within. We're afraid of the woo-woo-ness. We're afraid of self-love. We're afraid of carving out time for daily practice and daily rituals. We're afraid of meditation. We're afraid of mindfulness. We're afraid of exercise. We're afraid of taking a vow to not drink and fail repeatedly. Okay? So we're really terrified about doing that work, but also we're really terrified about being lonely, and we're afraid of what people think about us, which is like a bit of an oxymoron, because if we are really, really drinking alcohol and we're addicted to alcohol, we're lonely as fuck. But we think we're doing it to make ourselves less lonely, but we're just making ourselves lonelier and lonelier and lonelier. Our intimate relationships or our addictions just make us more lonely and more isolated and more disconnected. And it's an oxymoron, because we're drinking it because we feel like we're going to fit in. And it's just not true. It just doesn't happen. It's just, if we cannot be open with ourselves, how can we be open with our friends and our people? And if we're not open to our friends and our people, where is our connection? Okay. So really important. And Polly recognizes this, she says, "You're right, Lee. I shouldn't be encouraging two friends who don't need to drink to buy Peroni. But I'm so desperate not to be the person that people can't drink around. I actually find myself promoting it." And then she says, food for thought. That's processing at work. So she's wrote that out, and then she said to herself, this is something I need to think about. That's why this work is really good, right? And then she says, so I think I don't want people to feel uncomfortable drinking around me. I don't want it to be an issue. Who's making it an issue? Think about this. She said, I think I don't want people to feel uncomfortable drinking around me, and I don't want it to be an issue. Who's making it an issue? Right? Who's making it an issue? Polly says, I felt uncomfortable and disconnected with everyone, not because they were drinking, but because I was in mid-trigger and my mind wasn't with them. So this is a classic case of the addiction of alcohol being so powerful, and we're so locked into wanting a drink and battling with that we cannot be present for people. We cannot be present for them, right? And then we drink, which means we're not present for them. We're just hiding in a very different way. And the only answer is to be vulnerable, is to just say the truth and to be authentic and to be yourself. And that is a difficult thing to do. And it takes practice. And there's no better way of practicing it than being in a group like Strive, where you can choose to not even be seen, and you can just write it out and press send. And then when you develop enough confidence, you can be seen. You can go on Marco Polo, you can come on our online groups. We have 3 online groups a week, and it gets more and more comfortable. We need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because as Brené Brown always says, in order for us to defeat our shame, we need to talk about our shame. So think about it. Polly is sharing with Strive the very stuff she should be sharing with her friends in real life. I only want to drink right now because I feel really uncomfortable and I don't want to make an issue. It's such an assumption, right? Imagine that the woman turns around and says, well, I don't want to drink. I'm 8 months pregnant. And the guy turns around and says, well, I don't want to fucking drink. I'm an addict. Why would I want to drink? Imagine if they both said, the last place I want to be right now is walking around a village looking for a beer in the middle of COVID. Okay? What's going on here? Is it possible that resistance wants you to drink that bad that it creates the story that it is going to be an issue, and it prevents you from understanding if that is true or not? So it's resistance that is creating this bullshit story that you don't even get past the hypotheses phase. And all you have to do is ask, excuse me, is everybody okay with just hanging around the house playing Pregnant Twister? Anyone want a game of Scrabble with a cup of tea? Got some nice yerba mate now. We don't know, do we? Because we haven't asked the question. So assumptions. Let's get rid of our assumptions, okay? So it's great that Polly realized their uncomfortableness and disconnection, and the relationship with a lack of presence. However, the more a person drinks, the less present they are. It's just that you don't experience the uncomfortableness because you don't give a fuck. So we need to learn to not give a fuck and not drink, right? And then the question comes up I asked, are these people really true friends, right? Because if they are true friends, like I said, you would be able to really open yourself up to them in a bigger way, okay? So really important. And then after all this happens, her friends leave. And as they leave, the trigger becomes less intense because they're not there anymore. So Polly doesn't have to drink, really. And she hadn't drunk. So she did really well to use her trigger toolkit. So there's an assignment in the 1000 Day Sober Experience called Artillery, where we say to ourselves, if we're going to go to war with resistance, we don't want to go with a potato gun. We want nukes. So we get people thinking about what short-term artillery do you need to defeat your short-term triggers, and what long-term, long-range weapons you need to defeat this problem long-term. So in this case, Polly used some of her short-term artillery. And one of those was she has a journaling system. I can't remember what it's called. It's on a phone. And it enabled her very quickly to write this out, to process it. And because she processed it, it really helped her to not drink. And then she puts it on Strive, and now she's added accountability, which is really important. Then she comes home and she says that she starts snapping at the kids. And again, this is like an extension of the power of addiction, taking you away from the present moment and dealing with stuff, right? Penzu. Thank you, Tina. Yeah, so the journaling system that Polly uses is called Penzu. So we snap at our kids, right? Now, one of the things I love about 1000 Days Sober is helping people to understand that they snap at their kids. Because so many of us go through life thinking that snapping at our kids is normal and is acceptable. And we get very defensive if somebody tells us that we shouldn't be doing it. I've been there. I'm telling you, I've been there. And stopping drinking alcohol didn't turn me into a saint of a father overnight. 10 years later, I'm still working on that stuff. And that is why 1000 Days Sober is a container for life. That we help you to become better parents. We help you to become better people for life. You don't need to leave our container to be improving yourself. So, whenever we are snapping at our children, it's because we're not able to be present with them. And we need to understand why that is and how it's affecting them. And most important, we have to apologize to them. And we have to say to them, look, I'm really sorry that I snapped at you. You didn't deserve that. Now tell me, what is it that you wanted? That's how we should show up as parents. And it's a good example of the ripple effect of a trigger. Had Polly had a husband at home, she might have even shouted at him. She might have snapped at him, and then he reacted. And then she's having a go at him about reacting, and then he's going away, getting all upset that he thinks he's done something wrong. But this is because of the trigger with alcohol. So alcohol and the addiction of it bleeds into so many areas of our life. So many areas of our life, okay? I wrote here, it shows you the circles and the pond effect that a trigger can have. Some people believe that drinking helps reduce this, but the problem only goes away when you learn to sit through your triggers, when you learn to be mindfulness, And that's why we have a mindfulness and meditation coach at 1000 Days Sober, Hugh Byrne. he wrote the Here and Now Habit and Habit Swap. So, when I'm working with people one-on-one, I can say to them, okay, let's get you see, like Polly. Polly's in the 1000 Day Sober container, but I'm not working with her one-on-one personally. If I was, I'd be like, okay, Polly, we need to set you a date here with Hugh Byrne so Hugh can figure out a really good meditation and mindfulness practice for you here for life. So you aren't someone who meditates, you become a meditator. You aren't someone who practices mindfulness, you are mindful. And this will help you in life, not just in addiction triggers. So after snapping, Polly sits down with the kids. After a long, hard day battling the trigger, she reads them a book and she says, I still feel a little tired, but there's a lesson to myself in there. I can snap myself out of it by doing something positive. I am in control and I can knock a trigger on the head sooner and would likely feel less exhausted by my experience. I'm going to liken this to a muscle and will practice with each trigger, making them shorter. I will also journal more. Why have I left this so long? It is such a powerful learning tool. So this is another aspect that I find so beautiful about 1000 Days Sober and what I'm trying to, the culture that I'm trying to create here. I don't want people just spewing their mess everywhere to people. I want them to be more assertive about it. And what Polly's done here is she's done that. She's shared her inner turmoil, but then she's shared her learning from it. What I can do better next time. This is what I've learned from. So that is really important. It's like when we need to ask a question, like I have a question to ask. This is how I'm going to deal with it, but I'm interested in your thoughts on it. It's a lesson that is being imparted on me a lot lately. Taking that ownership, taking that power, being a man, making your decisions, whilst at the same time utilizing the people around you to help guide you and point out your blind spots in a loving, kind way. And when you post on triggers and you're brave enough to post on triggers, then we, as your teammates, as your community, as your family, our job is to point out your blind spots in a loving, kind way. And that isn't easy. And that takes practice. And this is why we use the color code personality testing so we can understand what color somebody is. So I know Polly's a red and I'm a red. So I know how I like to be spoken to and how I don't like to be spoken to. And I can use that when I speak to Polly because I know she's a red, right? Really important. I have on times just recently spoke to somebody on Strive, Paul, he's a blue. And I didn't take that into account when I responded with him and I upset him and pissed him off because I didn't communicate with him effectively. So really, really important tools about learning how to communicate. Imagine if you come to 1000 Days Sober, you do your color code personality testing and you really work on your relational literacy and improving your relational literacy, understand how to communicate with people more effectively. And then we put Polly back into that situation where her friends turn up. Is she going to go out to town and tell them where to get buy Peronis? Or is she going to communicate with them that she's going through this process and she doesn't want to drink alcohol? And I think it will be the latter because she worked on her communication skills, okay? So what can I do differently? Polly used a journaling app to help her record a trigger called Penzu. Thank you for that, Tina. And that is a really great idea. Like people often say like, well, I don't have time to do it. Yeah, you do. Like, just go to the toilet. Just say you need to go to the toilet. Just go to the toilet and just write that shit out. Go to the toilet and create a Marco Polo if you're in the Strive group, and just say, people, I'm really struggling right now. WhatsApp someone, ask someone to give you a call. What aspect of the value is delusional? So we always ask people who post on triggers, what part of this value is delusional? Polly says it all is. All aspect of value here is delusional. But here's the thing. It's not, is it? Because if it was all delusional, then Polly wouldn't have really, really been craving drinking. And you put me in that situation, I would not have been triggered in the slightest. So for me, all value is delusional because I just see the truth about alcohol. But in that moment, Polly was unable to see it because there was some value there. And, I think you've seen how complicated these things could be and what work Polly could do moving forward. Certainly massive amount of work, I would say, around slipping from fixed mindset to growth mindset, learning to communicate more effectively, and big piece of work around who are the people in my life that I need to tell them what I'm doing from a raw, authentic place of authenticity and ask for them, tell them what support looks like and ask them to support me. Is really, really important work, okay? Because if Polly doesn't do that work, then this Friday night trigger will just keep on going. Does that make sense? So if Polly was working to me as a one-on-one client and not just within the framework of 1000 Days Sober, I would be like a dog with a bone right now. Like me and Polly wouldn't be working on anything at all but this trigger. This is gold. Like I would be like, Polly would be like, what are we doing this week, Lee? This trigger. We need to bash this trigger until none of it provides us with any value. That when we put this back together again, you do things completely differently and you're not triggered. Remember, the purpose of 1000 Days Sober is to help you become someone who doesn't drink alcohol and live a kick-ass life. Forget the kick-ass life bit a minute. Just focus on truth about alcohol. Being someone who doesn't drink alcohol. You have to be someone who doesn't desire alcohol. Because if you desire alcohol, then what you're going to do is you'll end up being a dry drunk. You'll end up being one of those people in AA who has not had a drink for 35 years and you're telling yourself you're an alcoholic and you're only one drink away from nihilism, right? It's like, no, if you want to drink, fucking drink. But when you're 1000 Days Sober, if we do the work effectively, you don't want to. You don't want to, right? So I hope that helps. Tina, Stella, Dom, thank you very, very much for joining me live. If anybody's got any questions at all, then email me at 1kdayssober@gmail.com. If you want to learn more about the 1000 Days Sober experience and you want to come and work with me personally, then go to www.1000dayssober.com and we will get on a choose yourself call and we can see if we can work together. Okay? Take care, everybody. Bye.